Welcome you all to the Forum of the Dubai Film Market. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce the first session on our day dedicated to new frontiers in storytelling. The theme of the day is Different Reality, and this session is Welcome to the Third Dimension, Innovations in VR, AR, and Mixed Reality. Just to give you a little idea of the format of the session, we'll be starting with a keynote by John Attard, co-founder and CTO of Playing Forward, live from LA. And then we'll move into a wider panel. John will stay on for that, and we'll be joined by Peter Martin, CEO of Valis Studios, Roman Pradier, Production Director of DV Group, Alexei Morozov, CMO of VR Tech Group, Natalie Habib, General Manager of Blank Studios, and the moderator for the session is Lauren Seelig, co-founder of Shake and Bake Productions and the head of IMAX VR Fund. Please give them a warm welcome. Hello, John.
Good morning.
Hear us? Hello.
Hi, sorry. Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to John's keynote speech, version 1.37G underscore. Really, this is the final version, version 37. When first asked to give this morning's keynote speech on mixed reality, my first reaction was utter panic, as this is an exercise which does not require my ability to design code or produce computer graphics. What I realize is that it is in essence an explanation of why and how I'm dedicating myself to this field. If we take the launch of Microsoft HoloLens as the first true commercial offering of mixed reality in 2015, we were looking at an industry valued at around $35.3 million. Compound annual growth rates predicted at 77.3% up to 2023 will provide a market opportunity of $2.8 billion. Mixed reality applications will affect all aspects of human-computer interaction and will incorporate many other technologies in order to create entertainment, education, medical, engineering, and commercial tools, such as artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, a market which some expect will grow to as much as $17 trillion in the same time frame. That's a lot of zeros. But we have to be careful not to miss the real opportunity here, which is not purely financial. With the risk of sounding pontifical, the real opportunity here is social impact and change. The opportunity to build the foundation of a technology and new storytelling models which will change the human experience at least as profoundly as the internet did while we were busy looking at cat pictures. Let's take a look at that for the moment. The internet has gone from being a cool way to send messages to all friends around the world to being the nervous system for almost every aspect of our lives. From geolocational technologies, which have changed the argument for whether we should take the 10 or Sunset Boulevard to the 405 to should we use Waze or Google Maps. It stores our medical data, our shopping habits, and provides us with a comforting echo chamber so that we don't feel quite so crazy about the fact that the world is actually flat and David Bowie was actually from Mars. Joking aside, the internet has affected every aspect of human existence on the planet and has become as ubiquitous as electricity. At this point, all of the internet billionaires in the audience could ignore the next few minutes of my speech, but the rest of us, however, might want to take a retrospective look at the evolution of the internet. In essence, all of the signs to what the internet could and would become were always there. In my case, and in the case of many of my peers, we were too involved with the integrity of our art that we couldn't be bothered sparing this interesting fad moment of our valuable time. We didn't see that the internet would eventually revolutionize the film and television industry we worked in, to the point that it would entirely change the distribution model and provide for the current period of incredible storytelling through companies such as Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu, creating a more level playing field while raising the quality of the experience at the same time. We had the technical expertise, the financial resources, and the industry outreach, which should have allowed us to be leaders in the internet revolution. What we lacked was imagination. And that is the most valuable element necessary at this stage in the growth of mixed reality. The ability to project into the future and build for it requires observation, planning, and imagination. The good news is, unlike the Industrial Revolution, we don't have to wait 100 years for another opportunity to be a part of a technology which will reshape humanity. All we have to do is develop an ability to look into the future. The Chinese use the I Ching, Vikings use old bones, Indians use astrology. My mum used to use tea leaves, and Universal Pictures used a DeLorean and some weapons-grade plutonium. But don't despair, the mystical arts are no longer necessary. All we need today is some basic research, and yes, you guessed it, some imagination. So let's ask some basic questions to get started. Is it likely that people will have more computing devices in the future? Yes. Are these computer devices and networking speeds going to be faster in the future? Yes. Is there any form of universally accepted measurement that can help us plot the number of computer devices and their speed in the future? Yes. Are there any large-scale initiatives seeding the growth of mixed reality? Yes. Is there a consumer appetite for mixed or augmented reality? Yes. Will mixed reality be used outside of entertainment? Yes. Will mixed reality replace the current paradigm with which human beings interact with computers and technology, i.e. replace cell phones? Yes. And so the final question, if we've established that mixed reality will replace current means with which people will interact with technology, changing the way we work and communicate with the world, it will thus become as commonplace an environment as our computers at work or our social media devices. If the technological hurdle will be overcome in the same way that it was overcome by the internet or by the iPhone to become a part of everyday life, and if we look at Moore's law and currently developed and developing technologies to plot enabling milestones, are we not in exactly the same position we were at the birth of the internet, but with a lot more information as to where it's going? And if so, what are we waiting for? Well, here comes the complicated part, and I'm assuming the part most of you are interested in hearing. What is this mixed reality thingy anyway, and what will these experiences look like? I can help with the first part of the question, but I will leave it to this panel of my esteemed colleagues to discuss the second part. Let's start laying out what mixed reality is by discussing the technologies which have been introduced, which have led to where we are today with mixed reality, and the promise of where it will be in the future. Let's start with the various versions of reality that are being discussed at the moment, and no, I won't be discussing American politics. Virtual reality is a complete computer-generated environment which can be explored and interacted with. Currently, the higher end of the virtual reality offering that has seen the greatest success are HTC Vive, PlayStation VR, and Oculus Rift. Virtual reality has also a strong mobile presence with Google's Daydream and Samsung's Gear VR. Many virtual reality experiences are essentially 360-degree videos, which will allow you to experience the media all around you, but you are in that scenario essentially rooted to the spot. On higher-end devices such as the Rift and Vive, connected to powerful computers, you're also able to enjoy 6 degrees of freedom and move around inside the environment. These devices use infrared sensors, which are mounted externally, and track the position of the headset to provide the illusion of immersion. In order to avoid nausea, the minimum recommended frame rate is 90 frames per second, which means that these devices need to be attached to a powerful computer, rendering them a luxury, expensive item. A major disruptor to this model is HoloLens and the Microsoft Mixed Reality Initiative, but I will get back to that shortly. Let's talk about augmented reality. Augmented reality is the addition of computer-generated content over a representation of the real world, such as the view through a camera. The computer-generated content can be anything from simple information displayed over a product to complex characters and even sounds that are triggered by your position. We can't really touch on augmented reality without discussing Pokemon Go, an app which Apple predicted would generate $3 billion of revenue in 1 or 2 years just from the 30% share they keep in in-app purchases. Though Pokemon Go was augmented reality at its most basic, using geolocation to generate the appearance of various collectible characters, it did provide a resounding response as to whether or not augmented reality is an interesting paradigm for entertainment and content delivery. The ancillary value of the user base and social network created by Pokemon Go will have positive repercussions for years to come. Fast forwarding to the latter part of this year, Apple and Google have both created augmented reality technologies based on the SLAM technique. SLAM is an acronym for simultaneous location and mapping, which means that using the camera, a device can look at the surrounding area and calculate not only the relative position of the camera, but also discern surfaces such as floor planes and tabletops. This means that the geolocation of a user can be used to trigger an event, but then SLAM can be used to fix the content in place without the need for special markers or equipment. We can now place content on things such as our living room floor or kitchen table and enjoy the content from any angle. Think of it like watching a play, only a lot less boring. Working with partners such as Blink Studios here in the UAE and Stanley and Terry Douglas at Stanley's Kids Universe in the US, we've created a series of children's applications which use augmented reality, bringing stories to life inside the user's actual environment. I'm sure Natalie will be able to talk to you more about that during the panel discussion. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind when thinking about mobile in the augmented and mixed reality space. The first is that if any of you have an iPhone X in your pocket, it benchmarks faster than the Mac Pro laptop you bought only 2 years ago. Next, let's do a little math related to the development of technology. There are two components necessary for any technology-based platform play. Those are hardware and software. In Q3 of 2017, nearly 1 million VR headsets were sold, predominantly between PSVR, Oculus, and then HTC Vive, a record month. 6.3 million units were shipped in 2016. So let's assume the total number of headsets owned by users across the world is around 10 million. Let's put a pin in that for a moment and look at the iPhone sales of Q3 this year alone. 41 million units sold. Not taking into consideration iPad and iPad Pro sales, this number is considerably higher than the collective number of VR headsets sold. Then if we factor in Android unit sales, we're looking at a marketplace hundreds of times larger. As Apple and Google move forward with their respective agendas in the world of augmented reality, they're going to be developing increasingly more sophisticated camera and computer vision systems. Those camera systems will be commoditized by the bulk purchase, thus reducing cost and accelerating research. Let's look at the implication when developing content for these platforms. In a positive case scenario, your product may sell to about 10% of the market. In the case of VR headsets, that would be 1 million units. So if you sell your product for $10, you have a potential to earn $10 million. If, however, you capture 10% of the mobile market, the numbers provide greater opportunities to produce higher quality content with higher budgets. Though the technology is moving in leaps and bounds for the supercomputers we're carrying around in our pockets, there are still many limitations compared to a high-end PC. However, the world of high-end computers and mobile devices is quickly merging, with the first practical example of that being the Microsoft HoloLens. Now let's discuss the part you've all been waiting for. What is this mixed reality thingy? How is it different from augmented reality and virtual reality? And why should I care? Mixed reality, similarly to augmented reality, allows you to project virtual content onto the real world. However, the major difference lies in mixed reality's understanding of the real world. Rather than just being able to understand simple surfaces such as floors and tabletops, mixed reality is able to understand all of the complex shapes within your environment. This means that if a character walks behind your couch will occlude the character. More importantly, if you throw a virtual ball towards the character, it can bounce off of your environment. Spatial awareness also allows for other elements of immersion. Let's consider for a motion sound. Imagine listening to your favorite piece of music being played live in your living room or being played live in your garden. In those two scenarios, it would sound completely differently as the sound isn't reverberating against walls of your living room and it would be traveling different distances. Sound convolution, or the simulation of sound in your own environment, is now possible because mixed reality systems know where your walls, windows, and floor are. When you combine the visual aspects and audio aspects of environment awareness in mixed reality, the ability to seamlessly integrate content with your environment becomes possible. We listen to recorded music because it's the next best thing to hearing it live, but we would all rather our favorite artist performing just for us in our home. Well, now that's possible. Mixed reality is the next evolutionary step in our journey to creating immersive virtual environments. The prominent companies that are developing mixed reality platforms are Atheer, Dacry, Meta Company, Osterhout Design Group, Eon Reality, Facebook, Google, the HTC Corporation, Samsung, Magic Leap, and Microsoft. I'm going to discuss Microsoft for a moment from the perspective of a developer of both software tools and content for mixed reality. Earlier, we discussed the needs to acquire a vision of the future for mixed reality, and Microsoft have done just that. Looking at Microsoft and their strategy, they're providing a glimpse of what the future might look like, and they're doing it by essentially making their Windows platform into a mixed reality platform. They're already taking a step toward the new mixed reality human-to-computer paradigm. How they did it was surprisingly refreshing. They started with a proper prototype of what a future device might look like and put it in the hands of developers. Earlier, we touched on mobile devices becoming mixed reality devices, and to a certain degree, HoloLens is just that, self-contained unit which allows you to see the environment and projects onto that. Computer-generated imagery taking into consideration real-time reconstruction of the environment, allowing for mixed reality interaction. They also incorporated hand gesturing and voice recognition to make the experience as natural as interacting with the real world as possible. As a developer of the first wave of HoloLens headsets, this glimpse of what the future allowed me to really grapple with the experience and helped me develop a clearer vision of what the future may look like. What Microsoft has done with the data that they gathered from the initial HoloLens offering and the lessons learned from interaction with the development community is they incorporated what they learned into what is now the Mixed Reality Initiative within Windows 10. This has opened the door for a number of manufacturers, Acer, Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Samsung, to provide mixed reality headsets on the platform. In essence, Microsoft has developed a standard, not just a product. If we look at the current iteration of these headsets, it doesn't have gestural capability, nor does it have the ability to show the user the real-world environment. It does, nonetheless, itself see the real-world environment and makes that data available to its application. On first exposure, it seemed a disappointing step back from HoloLens until we started to develop for it and realized that Microsoft not only had a vision for the future, but also an understanding of the steps necessary to get there. The current mixed reality offerings feel like VR, but the subtle underlying mixed reality technology and platform makes it the perfect step for the consumer towards the future. What makes the Microsoft offering even more exciting is the development platform of Windows 10 provides all of the ancillary technologies we talked about earlier, such as artificial intelligence and IoT. With that overview of the current and potential future states of immersive technologies, I want to touch on what I believe is important for those of you that wish to develop content and applications for mixed reality. Seek help. The community is larger than you think, and so far we all seem to be playing nice with each other. Look to technology companies such as Unreal, Vuforia, Unity, and ourselves that provide tools that greatly simplify the development process on these platforms. You wouldn't write your own version of Avid or Premiere, so don't you feel you have to do the equivalent here. Secondly, understand this is not film or television. The technical rules of cinematography do not apply here, such as staging, lighting, and framing. Try and think of your content more along the lines of a live performance. Make an effort to experience and live within this new format as much as possible. Working with companies such as Blink, we have investigated this completely new paradigm for storytelling and have realized that if there's going to be a book on mixed reality storytelling, we're going to have to write it, which means being okay with doing things that don't work and learning from them. Don't do anything for the sake of saying you're making a virtual reality or mixed reality content. Film is awesome. I'm super excited for the opening of Last Jedi next week. Film will always be around. Creating a 360-degree video of content has its place, but it's not really mixed or virtual reality. Provide interaction and a motive for your creative choices in the medium. Our feedback to our own products is that interaction is key. Making the experience immersive is as much about your creative and narrative choices as it is the technology. Stellar examples of this are Antoine Cardon's retelling of the beloved Alice in Wonderland and Peter Martin's incredible Smithsonian VR experience. Remember also that this technology opens up the possibilities for entertaining experiences in other aspects of our lives, such as a company we're collaborating here with in the US, Visar, which is creating Novus Health Connect, a consumer healthcare system which helps them and their healthcare providers look at their medical data in fun, interesting, and more importantly, understandable ways. The fourth point is look to tomorrow, but develop for today. Our internal development pipelines are designed so that we can create content and use it across numerous platforms, allowing us to take advantage of the sheer numbers in the mobile market to help subsidize the content and experiences created in the higher end and future markets. In short, build a pipeline which future-proofs your investment. All of our products, for example, are designed to work on mixed reality and HoloLens, but we also have an offering with the same content for Apple iOS and ARKit and Android with Google's AR Core. Develop a long-term business strategy. We've established that immersive technologies will be ubiquitous, but that isn't today. If you build product or content that necessitates a quick return on investment, the level of risk, even with a large mobile market, is high. Not every experience can be Pokemon Go. Connectivity. Mixed reality and augmented reality allow you to connect to the real world. You can take your favorite character and have them act as the interface to the world around you. Wouldn't it be awesome to have Darth Vader control your oven? But don't forget, that also means connecting to other people in shared experience. All data indicates that shared experiences resonate on a much higher level than singular experiences. Again, Pokemon Go is a perfect example. Community is an asset. And lastly, content is king. I know it's a cliche, but it is true. The technology is a tool, as is a camera or lighting. Not every film is equal, and therefore not every immersive experience will be equal. The opportunities are endless. Awaken your inner child. Remember your imagination and build. In short, it's really up to you. You can talk to Natalie about this particular point. And my final thought is this. Mixed reality in one form or another is the future. The only question is whether or not you want to be a part of it, and if the answer is yes, have fun. Thank you.
This on? Okay, good. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. For those of you who don't know John and his work, in addition to being the CTO and co-founder of Playing Forward, before that he was an extraordinary visual effects supervisor for Star Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy. So he's quite a legend in the storytelling and the experience of being able to see things in a very different way than you had ever been able to do it before, and now has extended that into the virtual reality and mixed reality world. So for our panelists up here, thank you for joining us. I kind of want to start out just by getting the audience to know you a little bit better, and starting at the end. If you could each tell me your favorite thing that you are working on right now and the biggest challenge in being able to achieve that project and get it to go to fruition. I'll start with you at the end.
So, I'm Romain. I will be, I'm sorry because I'm replacing Antoine, who should be there, so I don't have a lot of things to say, but I'm working at Divi Group. We're building, we're presenting Helice here. It's an immersive VR theater experience. So we just wanted to going as far as we can with virtual reality and mixed reality. We presented here, it's the last day for us in 2017, and we made quite a lot of festival, and every people we met during the festival, we know that there is this is a new way to communicate, because we're just consuming differently the media, the movie, and we just want to introduce a new way of interact with the real world and the virtual world.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Natalia Habib. I'm both general manager and executive producer at Blink Studios. We've been here operating out of the UAE since 2005. Predominantly, our vision was very clear. We wanted to create original content from this part of the world for audiences in this world and beyond. Naturally, we're a CGI-based studio, so it was a natural evolution for us to get involved in what today is more immersive type of content experiences. We've gone through the sort of the evolution of AR, VR, but we landed in mixed reality. And to answer your question, Lauren, that's probably the most exciting thing that we're exploring at the moment. In close collaboration with John and the team at Playing Forward, we've been exploring, learning, testing, failing, and succeeding at many different points in creating content that actually integrates with our world. It's integrating with our world seems like a very plain sentence, but it's really in our world. And that's what makes it very exciting to see. And we started with a very small property that, thanks to meeting with Playing Forward, was identified as the perfect starting point to develop our understanding of how mixed reality can actually deliver a great story. Because at the end of the day, what people are looking for are great stories. And through testing and exploring that particular property, which is aimed for children, by the way, it's called Kareem and Noor, we were able to develop content and tell a story immersively in the world that we belong to, which is a bit different than what happens with AR and VR. The journey is still very early. There's a lot for us to learn, to explore, and hopefully pioneer, but our hearts and our investment has gone into this with the hope that this will definitely become the future of every person, young and old. So it's very exciting what's coming up. Thank you.
So yeah, by accident, I've been making virtual content for probably 20 years. I didn't realize I was doing it originally. It was, we were virtualizing talent, basically, which is my sort of core interest. How do you bring actors and personalities and, you know, just humanize the virtual experience? A lot of virtual reality right now is about gaming, or it's 360 video. It's very hard to bring talent into these stories, and I think without that, it just it won't grow. Essentially, every other medium, TV, film, radio, whatever, is built around talent. So that's my special core interest. It's also the most difficult thing to do right now in terms of building people. So you can't use a camera, for example. So when you're trying to film someone, you have to capture them. You scan them, you motion capture them, you facially capture them. So all these technologies are well used in movies, but they still can't really capture emotion and performance. So this is something we're looking at specifically, and so we're doing lots of stuff in music space, trying to bring musicians in, trying to figure out what's the future of music videos, and also we're bringing people back from the dead, which sounds very creepy, but we're working on a Martin Luther King project right now. So we're trying to actually build Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech in virtual reality. So there's lots and lots of technology challenges within that, but that's the opportunity and the challenge for us right now.
Okay, hi, my name is Alex. I'm CMO for VRTech. VRTech is a group of companies. We initially launched in 2016. We are actually capturing all things VR, so we're working in the entertainment and the industrial section. We also have some traction already in both domestic and international markets. So originally we're coming from Russia. The key point here for this panel is entertainment. So what we're doing is that we're introducing several products to the location-based entertainment, especially. So we're taking, primarily, we're taking players out of their homes. We're bringing them for a highly social experiences within the locations. So what we're doing is that we're delivering our own in-house produced VR games via the network which we're having right now. It's actually one of Europe's largest networks. We have 35 locations. It's called Cinema VR. You can check it out here. We are actually building up a booth right now, so it's going to be available. Anywho, so for massive market, which we're having at the moment, our key challenge is to build up a highly scalable solution that would help in delivering content. So let's consider this network as a brick and mortar Steam, so to say, for VR content. So we're developing some content in-house. We're taking third-party content. Primarily, those are co-op games. Those are multiplayer games. Right now, we have over 10 labels in our pipeline, I believe. So what we're doing is that we're trying to build communities of players around the location. So people are going to come together for social experience. They're going to collaborate within the virtual environments. Actually, we have launched one of the world's first virtual reality shooter tournaments just on November 23rd. where players fight for real money. So we're delving into the territory of cyber sports also. So if we try to make it short and boil it down to the key challenges which we're facing right now, point one is that the key challenge is how to get people from their homes into the locations, how to amass player communities around the locations, around the immersive gameplay. Point two is how to make virtual reality content and virtual reality activities really valuable for the media, how to get them friendly, how to make TV shows based on VR content. It's one of the things that we're doing also, and one of the challenges which we're facing. And the third thing is how to make content really engaging, how to keep people coming back, and how to keep them engaged. So we have certain traction there because the mass market solution has been in the market for over a year. We also have the Forefront solution. For that, it's called Polygon VR. It's like full immersion virtual reality experience for 5 players within one arena. So, of course, we do the wireless tracking and motion capture and everything. The key point there is that we also have an integrated TV broadcast studio. So the content, the gameplay, the experience of the players, it can be broadcast directly to TV, to OTT, to digital, to Twitch. So, and we have multiple arena support, meaning that you have an arena, say, here in Dubai. You can have an arena, say, in Moscow. So 5 players playing here in Dubai, 5 players playing in Moscow. They can be playing within one seamless virtual reality environment. So these arenas, they're united in the virtual environment, and players, they can interact with each other, compete with each other, they can work within the environment, solve puzzles and everything. So we believe that this is a highly media-worthy content, which can be really made into a beautiful entertainment product for the media. So those are the key challenges. Sorry if I took it a little bit long.
So I think all of us have played around with various different cameras, various different ways of capturing content, whether it's motion capture, light capture, rendering. We've all messed around a little bit with how do you do it as a director, how that changes, because now we're working in a different medium where there's no framework. You're behind, you're looking above, you're down below. And we've also noticed that even though you're making a lot of money in things like gaming, you can still make money in making a movie or a television show. Where's the money to be made in virtual reality or augmented reality or mixed reality or whatever the reality is that you're dealing with? And how do we get there? Alex, you want to start?
Yeah, I can do that. So actually, we've been working on this issue for quite a while, and the key point is that the introduction threshold for massive consumers in virtual reality is still quite high, meaning that for household use, for example, you need to pay about $2,500 just for the proper VR gear. Then you need to pay for the computer, the rig that's going to run the graphics and everything.
And you have to have somebody who knows how to set it up, which is pretty much nobody anymore.
Yeah, and the other point is that the social factor. For example, in case if you want to play in co-op within one location, you need to have a really big living room, so to say, or a set of rooms, and you need to have separate setups for that. I know that there are some platforms are working on this issue to support multiplayer gameplay for household, but for now, location-based entertainment is a really nice introduction point for VR for massive consumers because it drives trial, and people, they can test the virtual reality products within the controlled environments. They can test various products based on various hardware setups. They can try various content, and they're getting instructed. So, meaning that we're lowering the user's risk of introducing the content, and we're making the experience smooth and real nice because, because like I said, as any out-of-home entertainment business, you need to, streamline and fine-tune all of the processes for user experience. So the money is, first of all, is within the ticket economy, so to say, so meaning that you need to generate proper traffic to the locations, no matter what kind of content you deliver. It might be games, it might be movies, anything. The other thing, and where the real money is, are the infrastructural things, building up the proper ecosystems. So what we're looking into right now, what we're building up is, let's say, a centralized platform for content delivery, meaning that we go above the hardware level, we go above the location level, and we build up the content delivery platform for third-party developers where they can distribute their content, where they can watch and benchmark everything via the locations. So you have the user statistics, you have the gameplay statistics, how long, let's say, how people play with your products, what kind of feedback they provide. Everything goes on the go. So the key money there is within the ecosystem, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's talk to a filmmaker about cameras and projectors and they'll glaze over, right? They want to talk about storytelling. And the problem we're in right now is that that ecosystem, the pipeline doesn't exist. So, you know, I spend half my time talking about what camera I'm going to use or how we're going to deliver that on what headset. And, you know, talk to Steven Spielberg, it's like there's 30,000 cinemas and every camera at his disposal. So right now we're at the infancy. You know, it's like we're coming out of theater and someone just built a cinema. So we're at that point in VR, you know, it's very early. So all these ecosystem issues are very prevalent right now. We have to build that, or otherwise no one can see what we're making. But going back to John's point in his, you know, I think AR is the platform right now. It's just a cell phone. You know, it's not a headset. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to set anything up. You buy an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy, and it has ARKit and ARCore in it. So that the adoption is there without even asking anyone. You don't have to invest in AR. You just have to have a cell phone with a camera. So I think a lot of the content right now, the monetization is going to come through AR, just through a cell phone. And I think VR's got a bit of catching up to do.
I've seen a lot of businesses in virtual worlds that make more money in a virtual world than in the real world. What do you think happens when we've perfected the issue of the uncanny valley and people in a virtual world now look just as realistic as us sitting here right now? Do you think that's a positive thing, a negative thing? How will that change education, communication, community? Natalie, you want to take that one?
Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of things are going to still change. I think that we haven't begun to see what we're going to be dealing with in what a lot of people who are part of the technology world is saying in the next 3 years, which is not very far from now. Whether we're going to be dealing more with a virtual reality, I think that there is no denial that we need to stay in touch with our reality. And I think the reason why I believe in a lot of ways mixed reality is going to help with that as it advances and becomes simpler and the technology becomes second nature to everyone. Because the problem that we're facing right now with all this immersive technology is that it's still not second nature. Picking up your mobile phone right now is second nature habit. You don't think about it. You're just switching on the internet, second nature. But putting on a headset or trying to access an application that has an immersive experience is not second nature. Once it becomes that, then the threshold is huge because nothing anymore stops any 5-year-old, 20, 40, 60, 70-year-old from engaging with that content. And I think it all goes back to the technology itself becoming simpler, cheaper. The average $2,500 set is not easy for anyone to buy. Setting it up, my mom should be able to set up an immersive experience as easy as she does switching on her iPhone. Once that becomes a reality and we are not locked away from our reality with our content, then I believe this will be the opening gateway to what we will be experiencing soon. And I think that that's not very long from today. If you were to listen to people who are heading companies like Unity, Microsoft, Facebook, they're all talking about something, they're all investing into something that they believe will become the near future, and it's a necessity. So I don't want to say that it's about connecting virtual with reality. They somehow have to become one and the same. Look at it from an artificial intelligence point of view. Robots, Sophia, everybody heard of her, right? I mean, who would have thought we're going to be living like Star Wars do, right? That we're going to be talking to androids and we're going to be talking to Siri on the phone, but we are. And we will be talking to more Sophias in the next year or 2 or 3. The same thing is going to be happening with our content. We're going to engage in it in our real world, and then it become a much bigger area for everybody to benefit from, whether it's the end consumer or the end audience, or whether it is the content creator or the developers or the tech companies, everybody has a lot to look forward to. So I don't know if I've answered exactly your question, but this is what I believe is the paradigm of we're living in.
You bring up
I was going to just interject there with
there you
a thought of my own on the subject of the uncanny valley and performance and technology and one of the things I tried to get across in my keynote speech is we are at the very beginning of this technology, and one of the beauties of this technology is that we're at the very beginning of it, so we can shape it. But also, this connection with the real world means that we can connect with the things that we already love and have another means of experiencing them, such as my example earlier of having a live musician play in your home. I particularly love live music, and we're developing internally a technology based on light fields, which allows us to create a very low polygonal object within the three-dimensional scene, but allows us to replay with a streaming format that we're creating a representation of a captured human being. Now, as we move forward, these technologies are going to evolve, and I think that what I was trying to say earlier is that we have to walk at the pace of these technologies, understand that this is going to happen, and try and look at this from every perspective. And one of the interesting things that I'm seeing resonating on stage, which is one of the problems I think is the greatest problem that we have, is the distribution tool. How do you get all of that content onto that phone on your device? Because that Taylor Swift album collection that you have is taking up most of your memory, so you can't fill that up with enormous amounts of data. And so in our case, we've invested at least twice as much as we've invested in computer graphics technology in the development of our distribution network and our ability to send content on an as needed basis. And so, to the question about the uncanny valley, and also a little bit to the question about how you make money, it's very, very early days yet. And I would caution anybody who is thinking about making money on just an AR or an MR product alone. What I would suggest is you take things like a movie that you might already have, or a television show that you might already have, or a children's book that you might already have, or some other content, and augment that content with ancillary augmented and virtual reality experience that go along with it. And then it becomes part of a larger brand strategy, and then you're not putting all of your eggs in one virtual basket.
Thank you, John. I want to touch on the topic of the cool technology piece of it. I have played with contact lenses that simulate a VR set. You wouldn't even know that you're actually wearing it. It works just like VR set. Peter and I have played around with a cool new technology that is basically you're walking into a room that is a simulation of the holodeck. Do each of you have something extraordinary that you've seen where you go, that's it, that's the cool new technology, I'd love to see that actually become mainstream?
Cool technology. I think VR is new. Headset is really recent. So this is quite huge when you discover this. When you try the HoloLens or Vive or Oculus, it's quite offering something different, something new. We are building right now our own mixed reality headsets, just to prove where we can go. I think this is this is quite incredible. Yes.
One of the things that we've recently experienced is the Samsung MR kit that just recently launched, which is the Samsung Odyssey. And it's cool. It's actually very cool. I particularly liked a specific feature in it, which is the Cliff House. I don't know if you guys have heard the keynote speech from Alex Kipman on that. And what I realized was amazing about that is that I think each one of us will have a Cliff House very soon. Each one of us will create our own space. And I think one of the things that we're all going to be fighting for in the future, other than water, is space. We're going to be looking for our space. The word "get out of my space" is not going to be a joke anymore. It's like, please give me my space because I need to see my content. And that's what you already get when you experience the Cliff House and you're walking in this virtual area and you're checking out your internet and your Facebook and your movie and you're connecting with others and sharing, which is something that I think is also a key thing. So I think in general, in terms of the coolness of the Samsung Odyssey and what I've experienced with it, just takes it a little bit step further into the reality. I mean, HoloLens is great. It's great, but it's still, and you know, if Microsoft were listening to me right now, they won't be very happy, but it's still very heavy on the head. It's still got a lot of things that it needs to improve for it to become user-friendly. The Odyssey just makes it a little bit more lighter to deal with and easier to experience. And I think that it's a step closer to the HoloLens, which is what I think right now sits up there as the ideal developers kit that that Microsoft has very intelligently thrown into the market for one specific reason, is for developers and content creators to play with and figure out where the problems are so that they can improve faster. I think that's a very smart thing from their side. Rather than keeping it all closed up in their little lab, they threw it out there and said, here you go, there's your mixed reality kit. But in reality, there's a lot of challenges in it. The RAM, the heaviness, a lot of things. But it's only going to get better. And the Odyssey is one step closer to that in one way or the other.
I'm under such a strict NDA with this one, so I can't really go into deep. But Magic Leap is a company we've probably all heard of a little bit. They have like $3 billion of investment from various sources, Google, Alibaba in China. So they are essentially trying to bring you the Matrix, right? So very invisible kind of headset, almost like just regular glasses. And they can transport you to a full immersion or just an augmented layer. So I think that's what we all want to happen. We all need this device to work. It's a little bit a way away, but I think that essentially is the technology that's the kind of game changer. So you could be, I think I share an obsession with live music with John, but you can bring a musician into your world, so you can watch the Beatles in your living room, or you can transport a live stage show into your physical environment. I think things like that, people will buy that. That's content you will pay for. It's like life-changing experiences. But right now, everything's too clunky. No one wants to wear these headsets. No one wants a tracking device in their house. I think when you can bring content into any physical space, I think that's exciting. And that's in every science fiction movie we've seen in the last 20 years. So essentially, we need to catch up with that.
So technology is actually multifaceted. Therefore, I don't know. I cannot point out like a certain solution which really stands out, because everything is like making its baby steps in the development. For example, haptic devices. I've seen these haptic gloves that have the resistance. There are like small, what do you call that? I don't know, like small manipulators per each finger. Therefore, in case if you are picking up an item within the virtual environment, the glove, it recognizes what kind of material it's made of, whether it's hard, whether it's soft, and it restricts the movements of your palm and your fingers depending on what kind of material you're touching. For example, if you're taking a rubber ball, it provides some resistance, but you can still close up the fingers. But in case if you're touching like a hard item, I don't know, like a wood or something, the glove prevents you from closing the palm. That's one of the things that really tickles your brain, for example. But those are on the hardware part. Actually, I've seen quite recently a very interesting business case from the user perspective. One of the movie majors, I believe it was Paramount or somebody, they have launched a virtual cinema, a virtual movie theater. So what happens is that you put on a headset and you are you're teleported to a movie theater. You're sitting next to a big screen and you're watching the movies like Top Gun or like the old-time classics on the big screen with the 7.1, I believe, sound channels. and nobody's chewing popcorn next to you. Nobody's texting. Nobody's distracting you with the light of their mobile phone, and they're experimenting with it. I believe Netflix is also investigating into this technology. So what I'm trying to say is that there are things like hardware and there are things like content delivery. What we're looking right now is that a lot of companies are experimenting with how to deliver the content, how to make people experience something. So I believe that one of the directions is good to disrupt, to innovate, and the other thing is to look at the old content. Like for example, this movie Major did. They're looking, okay, they have a lot of movies within their portfolio. How to reinvent the delivery of the content? How to make people not just watch their movies on their TV screens or on their laptops or their smartphones, for example. How to make them re-experience how to make them feel themselves as the visitors of the cinema within their home. So this use case actually was the one that caught my attention just like the last couple of days.
I'm going to send this out to anybody who's watching. If anybody has any questions for anyone up on our panel, I invite you guys to please ask.
If in your studio, do you have in-house screen and script writers, or do you work with other studios?
We do both. We have in-house script writers, and we have ones that we hire depending on the production that we're working on. With the long-form productions, we don't rely predominantly on just the in-house talent that is available, because the process of writing only gets better when it's more collaborative and when you bring in new ideas. So, for example, when we were developing Kareem and Noor as scripts, we worked with writers from Ireland and from the States just to bring in a flavor of thinking and ideas and creativity. So we're not restricted in any way or form. We're very open to looking at different formulas of creating a production pipeline that makes sense to the production. Having said this, script writing now has changed for us because we script write for mixed reality, which in itself has been a massive learning curve. So the writers who worked with us, who are internationally recognized, were faced with their own challenges in writing a script that would actually fit in a mixed reality paradigm. And it got very interesting because there are no frames. How do characters come in? Can we cut? Can we fade out? Is there light? Can we show day? Can we show night? Can we show rain? So many different little elements and questions were brought up and were challenged. And like John very well said, a book can be written about just the experiences we've been having, from the simple story writing, script writing, to storyboarding, which has completely changed in our studio. The way we storyboard right now is 360. We don't storyboard anymore from a director's point of view specifically, but from anyone's point of view. What will they be seeing depending on how they're looking at it, and so on and so forth. So going back to your question, we welcome scriptwriters, but we welcome scriptwriters who are happy to challenge their own expertise. You need to have an open mind. And I recall very well that when we started the process of producing mixed reality within our own studios, one of the things that John told us is you have to tell your talents, who are very equipped with Maya, 3ds Max, understand everything, they even understand Unity, they have to go back to the basics. It's a deconstruction of what you already know to rebuild from scratch. And that does not only apply to the guys who are sitting behind the softwares, it also applies to the people who are writing the story and storyboarding it and thinking of the narrative, which is still and will always be the key thing in anything that is produced. Regardless technology, regardless how great it's going to become, everybody's after a great time to watch a great story. When it comes to film, of course, and in other fields it's a different focus, but here it is about a great story. So the short answer is yes, we do work with other people as long as they're open to trying and testing their own talent.
I want to piggyback on top of that for a second and just kind of share a experience that we're having right now with a virtual reality horror project with a very successful horror director who's amazing in creating a linear storyline, but when you have nowhere that you can hide the big scares and the jumps, how do you handle that when you're creating a virtual experience, right? How do you handle the storyboarding piece of it when all of a sudden you are having to look in every single direction? You have the opportunity not to be scared because you can see the guy who's coming up behind you. So it's a very different way of creating content, but it's also invites the writer or the director to be more multifaceted, to really think outside the box in terms of how they tell their story and who the actual audience is, and also what perspective you are within the story. Are you the person in it? Are you watching it from the outside? Could you be both? Can you be in the virtual experience, one as the protagonist and then as a different character, so you can go back in and almost have a choose your own adventure style of being in a virtual world? In the back.
First of all, thank you. You're all this is a great panel. My curiosity is, and I'd like to hear from each of you, or as many as you can, about I know Google Glass was going to kind of come out for a while, and then they sort of stopped for a while. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But my question is, in the same way that we all have smartphones today, what do you all see being that for? I mean, will it be Google Glass, or what invention do you see coming that's going to be so useful that will be used in everyday experience that maybe we might begin all being able to view, for instance, mixed out reality through, which is, I think, kind of one of the key things. So we're something I'm assuming that we would wear like Google Glass, or maybe the contacts you were referring to, but I'd like to know specifically, do you know of any particular device from each of you that maybe you would say would be that device? Is it here yet, or is it coming out that we all have?
I'll jump on that one real quick, and my panelists might hate me for this, but I think eventually it'll very simply be embedded devices. It'll truly just be part of your ocular system, and you can turn it off and on as you wish.
But that's way in the future. I mean,
In the future.
That's way
in
what
the
you're
next
talking.
year, it'll be very simply, what'll look like a pair of sunglasses, and that'll be how you
No,
make a phone call.
I know
augmented
that's the
VR.
concept of Google Glass. My question is, what company, or will it be Google Glass specifically? Like, do you know
I
the
think
specific
Magic Leap
device?
will have it. ODG is getting there. Mira has some. There's about a half a dozen companies that are all working toward that goal. I really am not sure who the winner is going to be, but I would take a bet on the Magic Leap side.
I mean, Apple, actually, I think only 2 days ago announced they just acquired a headset. So they're actually building glasses right now. I think all the obvious companies, I don't think it's going to come from VR. I think it's coming from a normal technology. So it'll be Microsoft, Google, Apple. I think that they know how to build these devices and sell them. It's not going to be HTC Vive for sure. Hope no one is from HTC Vive here.
I mean, we've had these conversations with John, and I think he knows like really who's ahead in the race. But I have to agree, it's a race about who's going to get there first, because Magic Leap has been playing around with a lot of devices. Google Glasses, obviously, it showed up and then it's not there anymore. We don't know where it's gone to and why. And probably Microsoft will probably come up with something else, or some other smaller company might. And the bigger ones will come in and say, give us what you started with and let's finish it. So it's still happening. Is what it is. So there is no real answer as to what and when, but it's coming for sure.
John, what do you got? I know you're trying out there.
Yeah, I think the answer to the question wasn't complete enough. You have to say how far you're looking into the future. So if you're saying 5 years, then I'd put a lot of money on either Microsoft or Magic Leap. But we're actually involved. We do a lot of research. So we do a lot of research into the psychological effects on children of various levels of immersion. And we do a lot of research in the medical fields to make sure that we're creating products that are actually not dangerous for people. But in doing that, we came across some research that was called Neuralace, which is being done predominantly to allow paraplegics to walk again. But basically what it is, it's a 4-atom wide cable which is assembled into a lattice format, which inserts directly into the brain. And actually, one of our partners is paraplegic, and he's one of the test subjects for this technology. And what they're doing is they're measuring the signals that are coming from the brain and using the lacing pattern to understand, to essentially geolocate which neuron is firing when a certain thing happens. Now, before now, we're dumb, human beings, and so we weren't able to look at that data and discern any patterns from that. But the research that I saw is they're using a non-deterministic artificial intelligence system, which is actually with artificial intelligence you teach it how to do something, but in this case it's looking for patterns itself. And so one of the effects of this is, as Lauren mentioned, they're understanding the signals are coming from the optical cortex. So once you understand what those signals are, you can, intercept them and provide your own version of the signal. So I think eventually, I believe that human beings will augment themselves with technology, and the mixed realities that we're seeing will just be something that we see inside of our heads. But if we're talking 5-10 years into the future, then it's kind of a race between companies like Magic Leap and Microsoft, and I think that a big step for that is their light field technology that they're using.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, lovely panel. Thanks very much. It's good to learn about stuff that I don't know that much about. I come from an event cinema background, and one of the interesting things at the beginning of that was that having a concert or ballet or something like this beamed into a cinema is a really great experience for people who obviously can't go to a concert, but it's a social experience. And so you have people coming together, and it's really nice. You have like-minded people in an environment. Do you see probably mixed reality, most obviously, being a component of that in the future, where you have, people who want to go and see music and can experience this kind of wider world through the mixed reality lenses, but also, you were saying the importance of community earlier, but IRL community as well, with the popcorn and the smells and other people being around. Do you see that being something that will happen in the future?
I'm going to grab that one real quick, and then I'm going to ask Peter to jump in on that, because I know he's dying to right now. I can see it in his face. There are a couple of companies right now that are working on not only virtual event spaces, but virtual DJ and music creation. So you can actually go into a virtual world or a virtual forest with a bunch of DJs from around the world and recreate the music that they're doing and put a skin on it from a different artist, and then dance to it, share it with your friends, and it becomes a very social, shareable experience that's, to me, a whole lot more fun, quite frankly, than going to a really crowded concert where there's 1,000 people around you and bumping up against you, and it's just exhausting. You actually come out of it more energized and not exhausted. But Peter, our resident music genius over here, want to take that one?
So yeah, I used to work for an electronic music company called SFX. So we had a big music festival called Tomorrowland, and every year we'd have 6 million people requesting tickets, and there were 360,000 tickets. So we were trying to figure out how to virtualize that experience, actually. So we're like, why can't we, 360,000 people physically go, and 5 million people share it online? So this was like 3 or 4 years ago, and we were investigating that quite heavily. And there's 2 ways of doing it. One is, the people who are there, you can augment their experience. There's only so much money you can spend on lights and lasers and, machines. So we were looking at, well, what about the sky? Why don't we virtualize, do a light show up there? So that's one way of doing it. Then you can also translate that into the at-home experience. So suddenly it's better than being there. That's the whole point. There's no point trying to replicate a live show. You have to give someone more than that. Otherwise, it's like a cheat, you know. So yeah, we've spent a long time looking at that. But then, you know, one of the big problems, and was going back to your question about even story writing, you've got to remember this is not a rectangle. Like every single piece of entertainment we've seen, from theater to film to television, even your phone is essentially a rectangle, right? This is an immersive open space, so it's closer to gaming. So that's the real challenge, is like, how do you translate that? Because when people are performing on a stage, you know, you're sitting in a seat and you're watching some actors on a stage. The best analogy for VR is there's an immersive theater production in New York called Sleep No More. If anyone has seen that, if not, you should when you're there. But essentially, that's a play in an abandoned hotel. It's 100,000 square foot. There's 100 rooms and 80 actors. You wander around trying to find the story. That's VR to me. That's basically the difference between, you know, VR storytelling and filmmaking. So if you can figure that out and put some performance into that, that's the next form of entertainment.
The same thing goes for sports too, right? So how much more fun would it be if you can actually watch the game at the 50-yard line as opposed to sitting way up in the stands? Or if you are in an arena, can you teleport yourself from one area to the other so you can see it from different angles in a much more immersive way than just sitting at home in your living room and watching it on television?
Actually, let me just chip in on that also. So, like I said, one of the products which we're doing is that we're looking if VR can make a footprint in cyber sports. So when it comes to the media infrastructure for the gameplay, for example, right now we're developing a second screen support for the viewers who are actually watching the gameplay. So it's no news that, you know, you can switch in between cameras via your device, but for second screen, what we're looking for is to provide another layer of viewer experience. So, okay, you can have POV cameras per each player. You can have the dramatic angles. Say, like you can have specific areas within the arena if let's say it's like some kind of a competitive gameplay. But also, what we're looking at is that, for example, we can take the smartphone users who are watching the game, and they can affect the gameplay. Like, for example, in case if this is like some kind of a competitive shooter, a person can use the app, so while he's watching, he can, let's say, like, place a turret within the strategic points they can enhance the gameplay of one team, or they can, you know, hamper the gameplay of the other team. So this is a completely new level of user experience, and that's what we're looking also. Like you said, for sports, for example, everybody knows that you know, second screen is the next big thing for digital TV and everything. So as soon as the ad turns on, people go social. They start discussing what just happened. So we're looking there, and we believe that cybersports is one of the proving grounds for highly social experiences, for not only for the players but also for the viewers, for the audience.
We have time for one more. Saw your hand go up. Go for it.
I'm wondering what you would summarize as the pillars of immersive narrative. Like, what are the rules? And if there are no rules and you're writing the book, what are the main things that you can avoid, and, you know, the things that you guys can give us a head start on so we don't, you know, hit our heads against the wall?
The rule book is being written as we speak. It's still at a very early stage, but it's not about what you shouldn't be doing. It's about what you should be. It's about how you should be focusing on, like Lauren very well said, who are you talking to at the end of the day when you're writing your story, and who's your audience, right? So that's the basic question, right? Who are you writing the story to? This time your answer is going to be a little bit different than just, you know, identifying a certain demographic, because you're going to have to think that that particular demographic is a curious one, is one that will test you. You can't cheat them anymore. Cheating is gone. Gone are the days where you can cheat. Gone are the days where you can fix things in an edit suite. these days are becoming less and less. People who are involved in content creation don't have as many tricks to play with to fix it. You need to think from the beginning and troubleshoot from the beginning what potentially could be happening in something you are still to create. And your mind starts playing tricks on you because once you start thinking immersive, you're so immersed, you start losing the plot about what you're doing. And honestly, I'm telling you this because we're experiencing it every day with every little script we write and every little frame we animate. It's very important to always stop and ask yourself, it's not about me and it's not about one particular person, it's about all of us and how are we looking at this story. And there is a challenge because, I mean, usually when you write story, it's a 3-plot story. You've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Well, now you've got multi-stories. You've got multi-plot. You can decide not to, by the way. You can come up with ideas where you bring back the audience to where you want them to come to. And there is something that is actually being explored with, I think, with Google as well, Google Spotlight. They, 2-3 years ago, they engaged with a couple of animation studios, like Aardman, and I believe Disney was involved as well. And they've asked them to start creating 360 virtual storytelling and to test that in their in specific stories that they wrote and created. And they managed to change that, and I actually watched those experiences. So it's an evolution. There is really not a set of rules that I can share with you personally at this stage, but I can only tell you what I've already said. You have to deconstruct whatever you already know and start from scratch and question every little step you take when you're writing a narrative.
If I can throw in an answer here. One of the things that's changed for me is I used to use the word storytelling or narrative, and I spent 25 years in film, so it's one of those things that sticks with you, and it hinders you a great deal. We're not really telling stories the way we're telling in film, and one of my points is this isn't film, it isn't television. Peter described it as not being the rectangle, the 360-degree experience, and the perfect example is the hotel. What you're building are experiences, and in those experiences, you can create a narrative. But that narrative needs to be something that's flexible and fluid, where your choice will trigger other versions of the narrative in other areas. So if you're in the hotel, for example, and you walk into room X as opposed to room Y, the rest of the cast will know that you've learned something, and then they will adapt their performance based on that. And that's perfectly doable within this paradigm. And so I think that the best way to think about it, from the offset, one of the things that helped me is I've eliminated the word narrative, and I've eliminated the word storytelling, and I said, okay, I'm creating an experience, and how is a guided experience, but what is that experience going to be like?
Last thing, real fast, 10 seconds each, starting from the end. Give me your favorite virtual reality experience that you would recommend everybody in this room go and do right now.
I won't be objective, but my favorite for now is Alice. And the one from Antoine Carroll.
To be very honest, I don't have one that has so far resonated with me because I managed to find some glitches in some, and the ones that I've seen already, but I'm looking forward to experiencing more. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm not going to give any favorites.
I think the Inarutu piece actually has already won an Oscar, which is good recommendation. Purely because it's a master storyteller working in the medium in an innovative way. He's not trying to make a film. It's exactly what John said. It's experiential. It's not storytelling. So it's a physical experience. You have to take your shoes off. You're kind of one at a time. There's actors in the space. It's physical. It's like a hybrid of gaming, filmmaking, theater, which is why it works, I think. So that would be my favorite.
Well, I basically don't have a favorite VR experience, but let's say that one of the things that I'm looking forward to is the Void. They're launching a new content, based on the Star Wars.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So the key thing is that they have really built into the brand's infrastructure, so to say. So people are experiencing a new movie within the cinemas, and then they can reimagine or become one of the characters within a short but very interesting gameplay. So I'm looking forward to that at the moment.
John, you're last. Wrap us up.
As you can see from behind me, I'm kind of exposed to a lot of virtual reality experiences. But I'd have to agree about the Void. The Void is the first time I really, really, really was thinking about how much I needed to bribe them to let me go back and do it again. It was an amazing experience. The walking around in the environment and all of the other things that they added to the experience, such as wind blowing on you and water, and it was just it was mind blowing, and it was the closest thing I've ever experienced to the Star Trek holodeck, and I just thought it was fantastic. And I think that from a location-based entertainment perspective, it is hands down the best virtual reality experience that's out there at the moment. But from a home perspective, a personal perspective, ever since I figured out how to lock the toilet door when I was a child, I've been a fighter pilot or a starfighter pilot in Star Wars, and so I think I've spent about 700 or 800 hours playing Elite Dangerous in VR, and it is of all of the things that I've used, it is the one thing that the 48-year-old in me gets replaced by that 9-year-old boy again, and I really feel like the imagination that I had at that age is satisfied by that experience. So those are my two favorites.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.